Welcome back, listeners and viewers. We're here with another episode of the Coalition9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. Our guest today is pretty well known around the Twin Cities talent scene, and being the host of his own podcast, it's time we turn the tables on him to learn about his journey. Let's dive in and learn about the story of my friend, Chris Dardis. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend.
Aaron, it is a pleasure. I'm flattered you asked. I'm excited.
Are you kidding me? How long have we been trying to do this? Like a year? Like a year. I think it's literally like a year.
I think you're right.
It's hilarious. And so we were going into a new Timberwolves season. We were gonna talk about the Timberwolves. Now we've got one season under their belt, and so we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about with that.
Oh man,
frankly, you're a huge community supporter of Coalition9, and I love that about you and Versique, but also I just haven't spent enough time with you. So this is a great way for me to get to know you a little bit deeper and share your story with our listeners. But I like to learn myself. I love being curious about your journey and some of the stuff we were talking about in advance of recording, the prep form that you did and stuff like that. You gave me just enough to ask a few questions, but let's just let this go organically.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I feel the same way. We bumped into each other. I really appreciate what Coalition9 does in our community and for us as a business. And so I've seen you in passing and we've shaken hands. I don't know if we've ever gotten a beer yet, so we'll have to certainly change that.
Yep.
But I feel the same way. Let's get going.
All right. Let's start out your youth. So give me a little bit of for lack of a better term, paint me a little bit of a picture of like what growing up was like for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm an Air Force brat. So I was born in an Air Force base down in Mississippi and quickly was moved to the Dakotas. So I grew up in North Dakota. I'm a proud Fargo South Bruin. I grew up in Fargo and, did as much as I could in high school there, basketball, football, track, show choir. And I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, homecoming king. So no big deal, class president.
No big deal.
If you want to talk about it, that's cool. But
right.
Yeah. So Fargo was great. Grew up. I've got an older brother who's older than me by 16 months, and then a younger sister by 5 years. And Fargo is a really, really great place for me growing up.
When you think about, one of the things I always like to touch on this show is the nature versus nurture dynamic. And, growing up, an Air Force brat, being the middle child, I'm just picking up on a bunch of different things that kind of maybe shape who you are. So from a nature side, you're wired the way you're wired, but then I believe nurture has got such a profound effect, especially, when you've probably got some travel going on and you are the middle kid. When you look at the nature versus nurture dynamic and being, in the stage of your career and the stage of your life, how much you think of that, both of those have played a role in your growth?
Oh yeah. I think nurture has been a big part of who I am today. When I take a look at my father and mother, it's interesting. I feel like early on in my life, I feel like I was more similar to my mother, just in terms of, just very caring, loving, touchy-feely, really just maybe wanted everybody to get along and that sort of thing. And I think as I've progressed in my career from a nurture perspective, I think I'm slowly becoming more of my father. My father was a very successful banker here in the Twin Cities, and he was the CEO of Bremer Bank for about 20 years. And, I always growing up, sometimes we have visions of our fathers where I always thought my father was he was a pretty hardworking, strict individual. And so I think I've kind of morphed and I'm starting to lean more his way a little bit more. And I'm not sure what that is, but as I continue to have breakfast with my dad every 2 weeks, I'm kind of recognizing that he wasn't really the hard ass guy that I thought he was at all times. And as you run into people who worked with him, I'm really proud to say, I think I'm turning into what my dad was from a leadership perspective here in the Twin Cities. So if that answers your question, I think I'm somebody who is kind of run the gamut as to how I show up throughout my career.
Did you have any desire to get into the banking world? Was that ever just teed up for you, or do you have any family members that are in the banking world, since your dad was in that industry?
I do not. I've got a cousin on the other side of town who worked for a bank for a little bit, but no, I had an opportunity to get into banking for sure coming out of school. So
Yeah.
I'm a proud Johnny. I went to St. John's, and like most of us, had no idea what I wanted to be coming
Yeah.
out of school. And so my old man set me up with an interview of within a competitor bank. And because he said, I'm not big on nepotism, but you got to earn your own stripes. And so I went in for my first bank interview, and man, did I get turned down pretty quickly for that interview. So I had the opportunity, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I blew it in that interview. And I still joke about that with my old man to this day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the closest I got, I was a bank teller in Detroit Lakes for a couple summers.
That community up there, South Fargo into, all of the different little communities that are up there, they kind of, kind of feel like everything kind of cross pollinates a little bit, even got down into Detroit Lakes and everyone, goes there and that's where they spend their summers and all that other stuff. Were you a big part of that community, your family, a big part of that community and stuff like that as well, and go out and really capitalize on all that?
Yeah, you know what? I think so. I think we're a big part of the community, just in terms of the relationships that we had there. And it's funny now in my career, every time I run across somebody who's from Fargo or even North Dakota for that matter, there's always kind of an instant slowdown and connection there, where that 701 area code, that's special, man. That's
Yeah,
special.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So when you made the decision to go to St. John's, what contributed to that? I mean, I'm a college dropout, so I didn't go anywhere. And so but I have a ton of friends that are Johnnies, and probably, we are mutual friends with them. And so there's a thought process that goes into that. And it's usually, everything I find is it's very deliberate. Like, they do a very good job of making sure that you feel like this is going to be part of your small part of your journey. What was the thought process there?
Well, as a senior in high school, didn't really know where I wanted to go. And my old man, my dad and I were driving from Fargo to the Twin Cities to take in a Vikings game one Sunday. And my dad, as we were driving by St. John, said, "Hey, would you ever consider that?" And I said, "I don't know," like a typical senior, right?
Yeah,
Didn't
right.
know.
Yeah.
And he drove me through campus, and from the moment we drove through campus, I just kind of felt it. And then getting back from the Vikings game that week, I remember I read there was an article in Sports Illustrated about John Gallardi, the football coach up
Right.
there, and how he was the coach of no's, like no whistles, no yelling, no hitting in practice, and that sort of thing. And at the time, I said, "Geez, that suits me a little bit. I'm interested." And then one of my very best friends, Jeff Collins, shout out to Jeff, who's back in Fargo. His father went to St. John's. So as I started talking to Jeff about his plans, he said, "I'm going to St. John's because my father did,"
Mm.
and really illustrated a lot of the connections that you can gain coming out of the school. And really, that's what allowed me to do it. So I went up to St. John's and played football and ran track. I was a management major. And to this day, I'll say it was one of the best decisions that I made. And at the time, didn't know it was going to be that big of a decision, but I'm certainly grateful that I did.
Yeah. Do you use, I mean, everybody that I talk to, you have to be able to capitalize on that alumni network. I think they do for a MIAC school, I would put them up against probably any other school in Minnesota, of just how great they curate and manage that alumni network and really make sure that you feel connected as you continue to progress.
Yeah, it's certainly stronger than St. Thomas's.
Oh,
shout
well,
out, shout out to
yeah,
St.
yeah,
Thomas. So
yeah.
anybody who just
Any
pulled the car
Tommy's
off the
losing their
road,
mind right
yes,
now.
another Johnny dig. I got in there. Well, I will say yes. That's been it's always been very organic. The Johnny Network. And shout out to Adam Herbst, who is a former teammate who's now, I believe, the director of alumni at St. John's. He's really done a good job with trying to make the Johnny Network almost an official capacity versus the organic relationship piece that it's been. Because I think St. John's traditionally has done a really good job from pre-graduation to connecting people within the world intentionally. And what I think St. John's is trying to get better at is connecting the professional Johnnies intentionally. So there's the Johnny stand-up that happens every year. There's a couple of events that
Mhm.
are pretty sacred to us as alumni.
I know the chances of this are very good, but I may not hit with this. Is your wife a Benny?
Oh, see, that's a really good question. Yep, I forget what the percentages of Johnnies and
It's
Bennies
nuts.
getting married. She is not. My four roommates and I traveled into St. Cloud one night to go to the red carpet, and I happened to meet my wife, who's a St. Cloud State Husky.
I love it. I love it. So, I mean, I got to believe that those numbers are close to 50%. I mean,
yeah, I think it's 50% or above.
It's nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you work any jobs or anything like that while you were going to college, or were you pretty focused on just education and sports?
Yeah, it's education and sports during the school year, but during the summer, yes. My first summer, I worked at WeFest behind the scenes. That was really interesting to see that go down.
Nuts.
And then the 2 following summers, I was that bank teller up in Detroit Lakes.
Yeah. Sweet. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. I want to get into your career here, and I think this is a good moving point here. So let's take a quick break. Let's listen to a few of our community supporters, one of which is Versique. So we're probably going to be listening to the Versique ad here right after this. Chris and Versique are an awesome community supporter of ours and help make this thing happen along with our members. So let's take a quick break. We'll come right back here with Chris Dardis.
Versique Search and Consulting is thrilled to support Coalition 9 for an exciting year ahead. Versique is a Minnesota-based, high-performance recruiting firm that specializes in interim solutions, direct hire, and executive leadership search. Our team of experienced professionals and seasoned leaders across various areas of expertise and industries have been in your shoes. Your company's success hinges on the capacity of your people, and few areas of your business are more critical than your finance and accounting team. You need talent who can move the needle while winning the trust of leaders and stakeholders in your organization. Your people make it possible. Versique can help connect you with the talented candidates within finance and accounting for consulting or direct hire needs, as well as within other industry areas in executive search, direct hire, and interim solutions. People are the ultimate business advantage. Find your people together with Versique and make the best possible for your business. Learn more by visiting Versique.com and by following Versique on LinkedIn.
Tradition Capital Bank is a local bank that has the products and capabilities to service middle market companies, nonprofits, and their owners, employees, and families by offering a high-touch approach paired with customizable solutions. Think of them as your nimble ally serving with generosity, care, and precision. Tradition starts with the assumption that there's always more to learn, try, and discover, aiming to find the best yes for whomever they have the privilege of working beside. From a foundation of trust, Tradition takes disciplined, smart risks to help people grow beyond what they even thought possible. Tradition Capital Bank is the second largest privately owned bank headquartered in the Twin Cities, and with locations in Edina, Wayzata, and North Oaks, Minnesota, alongside their office in Scottsdale, Arizona, Tradition Capital Bank is committed to big bank offerings with a small bank ethos. Let their team be the friend you need in your next financial move. Mason Jar Marketing helps businesses bridge the gap between marketing and sales so they can crush goals. They're a collaborative partner, one who translates strategic priorities into actionable, goal-aligned tactics. You can count on them to deliver creative expertise and flawless execution for all marketing channels, no hand-holding required. If you're ready for a partner who listens well, thinks big, acts fast, and drives results, schedule a complimentary marketing needs assessment at masonjarmarketing.com. Regardless if you're a startup just figuring things out or a medium-sized organization with a full team, having a legal partner by your side is crucial. Seiler Law is fiercely loyal to their clients and are passionate about removing headaches and roadblocks that can pop up during the growth of your business. Whether you need general outside counsel, are planning a business transaction, or even need someone to guide you through the estate planning process, the team at Seiler Law are the advocates for you. Visit seilerlaw.com to learn more. Seiler Law, where experience meets pragmatism. United Healthcare is dedicated to helping people live healthier lives and making the health system work better for everyone by simplifying the healthcare experience, meeting consumer health and wellness needs, and sustaining trusted relationships with care providers. UHC is continually focused on building a modern, high-performing health system via improved access, affordability, outcomes, and experiences. With a network of over 1.6 million physicians and healthcare professionals in over 6,000 hospitals, United Healthcare is dedicated to connecting employers and their employees to better health by offering quality benefits designed for affordability. For more information, visit United Healthcare at www.uhc.com. United Healthcare, helping people live healthier lives. As a boutique Twin Cities-based investment banking firm, Madeira Partners works closely with family, founder, and management-owned businesses, bringing over 25 years of experience and hundreds of successful transactions to the table. It's in their DNA to educate owners on what potential exit opportunities look like, along with any industry or company-specific things to think about to make your business more attractive to potential buyers. Regardless if you want to sell tomorrow or in 10 years, the team at Madeira Partners would love to provide their expertise and guidance along the way. Take some time to explore their website at madeirapartners.com. Madeira Partners, your life's work deserves our best work.
All right, we're back with Chris. Chris, we heard a little bit of the journey of you growing up a little bit, and now this is where I think it starts getting really good. So tell me your first gig out of college, real quote unquote real job.
My first quote unquote real job. Well, I graduated in 1997, so right before Y2K, and I think about my four roommates, Billy, Dave, and Jeff, how we had our rejection letters, because back in 1996, you got letters in the mail that said, "No, thank you, you're not hired." And so we had our wall of shame up in our house up in Collegeville. Y2K was really starting to pick up steam. And so I remember continuing to go to job fairs and things like that. And it was about a week before graduation, I bumped into a recruiter at a job fair, and he worked for an IT company called Keene Incorporated. Keene is based out of Boston. And he and I got to chatting similar to what we're doing here. And he said, "You know what, Chris, I think you'd make a really good IT consultant." And I said, "Why? I've never taken an IT course. I majored in management. I'm better in art and English than in math and science. Why would you think that?" And he said, "Oh, no, I think you have a pretty good personality." And so I grabbed onto that thread and I said, "Okay, yeah, me too. Let's go for it." And they made me an offer to be a coder, and I could only do that if I were to pass a COBOL programming test. And he said, "So you've got 2 weeks to study for it." I would buy no kidding. He said, I would buy the Programming for Dummies book. And so I went out to B. Dalton or whatever and bought that book, studied it for 2 weeks, and passed with the lowest score possible. And he said, "You know what? You passed the test, you're hired." And so they shipped me out to Boston for 6 weeks of kind of programming boot camp, where it was about 12 hours a day in a dark room learning COBOL, JCL, PL1, Dreamweaver. Shout out to all my old coders out there.
Oh, yeah, I remember Dreamweaver.
And I quickly made friends with the smart kids in the room, and they helped me get through that boot camp. And was my first assignment then with Keene was being placed at Thomson Reuters, which is now Reuters in the Twin Cities, where I programmed for 3 years and was out of my comfort zone the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, when we started this thing, I don't know you super well, but what I do know is that you're like me, you got some extroverted tendencies and things like that. How does someone with your I know how I'm wired, and that I would probably eat my arm off if I was stuck in a room having to code all the time. How did you, what did you do to stay engaged for 3 years while you're doing that? Was it just natural, or did you have to figure out ways to feed that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, certainly the kind of the logical binary thinking was not natural to me. And I'll say to this day, I am forever grateful, because I think those 3 years of making that sort of logistical thinking imperative to me has really, really helped me in my career, because I think it shored up something that I was a little weak in coming out of school. And to how I survived it over 3 years, it was the people, man. It was the individuals that I would get to talk Star Wars with and Trekkies with and video games with. And that's a part of kind of who I am too. And it was a really good time. So I remember really loving talking with the end users and figuring out how they wanted reports to look. And then I'd have to go back to my cube and just grind away on writing the codes. But I loved that relationship that I had with the end users. And I really loved the relationships that I had with my peers at the time. And so when Y2K came and went, Keene came to a lot of us that were just legacy coders that had all this dinosaur code knowledge. And they said, well, we're kind of through that now, and we're trimming back a little bit. So I was let go in about 2001. And at the time I was I was scared to death, of course, but I was kind of grateful for it because I knew that I had a limited capacity in that industry. And then I went to a recruiting firm in 2001 and said, I have a wife who's a school teacher. I have a 10-month-old son, and I need you to help me find a job. And that recruiter at the time said, okay, we can find you a computer programming job for sure. And I said, no, you don't understand. I don't want to program anymore. And he said, what do you want to do? And I was back to square one again. I said, I don't know. But I love relationships with my end users, and I like forming relationships with my peers. I really enjoy that. And the recruiter then at the time said, I think you should be here. I think you should work within our firm as a recruiter. Huh. And I fought against it. I said, oh, no way, man. Recruiters don't have a very good reputation, do they? And he tried not to take offense to it. Yeah, and he's like, well, it depends on who the person is. And ultimately, he let me know, or he convinced me rather, that being a recruiter, number one, is all about relationship management. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I like that. At the time, he said, number two, you can make some pretty decent money doing this. And I said, okay, yeah, that's important. I've got my young son. And then he said, and number three, you can really change people's lives because you're taking them maybe from a situation where they're unhappy within work, and then you're fundamentally changing the course of their life by putting them into a new situation. And that's really what spoke to me at the time. And so I kind of took a deep breath and did the sign of the cross and said, okay, let's try this out, and stepped into it. And man, it's been 21 years in the industry since that day. So that individual that got me into our industry was Paul Bees, and Paul Bees has worked for Versique, and we have his retirement party coming up here within the next month. And so awesome. Life's a circle, man. It came all the way back where he hired me, and then we hired him years later.
So you're going from IT, right? Programming, very different world, going into recruiting. Do you remember a time in the first year, let's call it maybe even 2 years, where you learned some type of valuable lesson to where you were just like, oh shit, this is real. Like this is a totally different world that I got myself into. Do you remember any specific thing like that where it was a lesson learned?
I think there was a moment as I was starting to be a recruiter where I had gone to a networking event. And this was about 9 months in. And I remember being at the networking event. There was a couple people that I knew there, and then a couple more individuals that I met for the first time. And walking out of that event, I just remember it being such a euphoric high for me that there was almost like a tremendous gratitude that came over me to say, thank goodness I've found something that feels this right, that really combines kind of who I am innately with, and if I'm good at this, it also brings value to other people. Mm-hmm. I remember that moment and saying, like, I'm really, really glad I made that jump.
And, even if I were to, and we'll have your LinkedIn profile on our show notes and stuff like that. But if you go through your LinkedIn profile, like you're a pretty rare, you've stuck with a couple companies for a long time. And, you maybe had a brief stop, I think you were with Robert Half for a healthy amount of time, right? Over 10 years. Yeah. And then you took a little bit of a break and then you ended up landing at Versique. But you've got a really interesting aspect of like how you've approached your career, especially sticking in. And I think those days have frankly kind of come and gone. I think people our age typically would stay with places a little bit longer and then maybe make a strategic move, where now times have changed where I feel like people, maybe Gen Z and millennials are moving every 2 to 3 years because the environment allows for that. Are you the type of person that really enjoys just getting comfortable and making your mark on things? Or is it just the culture that made you want to stay there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And only now, as I'm later in my career, you can kind of look back, and as you start to assess, why was I happy here? Why did I leave here? Why did I like this boss? Why did I hate that job? I think what I've started to figure out is it's less about what you're doing. It's less about where you're doing it. And it's more about what I affectionately refer to as the 3 keys of your career. What are your 3 career keys? Just to distill it as low as I can. What I mean by that is finding 3 things that need to be a part of your professional life that regardless of where you're doing it and regardless of who you're doing it for, you can say unequivocally, like, if these three things are a part of any situation I'm in, I know I will be engaged in the role and I know I will thrive in the role. And so for me, it goes back to what I said a little bit earlier. It's number one, my first career key is relationship management. Anything that I'm doing has to be founded in that relationship management. I have to have the ability to meet new people and cultivate old relationships that I've met previously. My second career key is I have to work for leadership who I feel like is truly supportive in what I'm trying to do every day. And what I mean by that is that there has to be an element of trust from my leaders. And then the third piece is I have to feel like I'm making the world a better place by the work I'm doing. There has to be a deeper why behind it. And as I look back throughout my career, I can tell you exactly why I left each of my other roles, or when I was disengaged in any of my other roles, because they were maybe lacking in one of those three areas. And the reason I've been at Versique for 11 years now, which is crazy to me, and I've taken on just a couple different roles within Versique, but I can say that I've had those three career keys in spades here at Versique. And so I think that's what I would say to the people listening right now is, if you can truly figure out what those filters are, what those three career keys are that help you to say, I will be engaged and I will thrive in the role if it has these three things. That's such a powerful tool for as you're assessing new opportunities, or if you're disgruntled in the role now, it helps you pinpoint, well, what do I need to fix, or what do I need to address so I can be happier in the role?
And I think a lot of people would probably, if they were to be able to put their finger on that third one, they're probably going to be a little bit happier. And if they're not, it's, that whole purpose/why side of things, like, why are you showing up every day? Like that, I think a lot of people, they miss that, or they're maybe chasing the dollar or something like that. The thoughtful approach you've taken to that, I think is super important. I just wish more people would take that same approach.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I know enough about, and anybody who knows anything about recruiting/talent management or anything like that knows the whole story of Versique and the business they had beforehand and all that other stuff. So I'm not going to get into all that stuff. But so you're early on in the growth of Versique. How did they find you, and how did you end up landing there? And tell me a little story there.
Yeah, that's good. So I was at Schwann's, and I was at Schwann's for about 3 years. And when I was at Schwann's, I was thinking to myself, hey, I've got my director of talent acquisition role. It's what every little boy in talent acquisition wants. It's what like if you're an agency recruiter, one day you dream about, maybe I'll be a director, right, of TA. And I had that. And I had such good leadership over at Schwann's, and Gail Hayhurst and Tamara Redding and Scott Peterson. And I was really happy there. And in 2013, Chris Ohlendorf and Tony Sorensen just came knocking on my door. And just to summarize the story, Tony Sorensen said, hey, we created a new brand called Versique, and we launched it 6 months ago, and we want you to be a part of it. And the reason they were coming after me is they had met me before just through networking events and that sort of thing. But they recognized that I was an individual who knew the search side, because I'd done that at half for a little bit. And I also knew the contracting side, because I had done that at half. I'd also helped to stand up the HR division at Robert Half. So something that didn't exist, and then I grew it. And so what they said to me is, we want you to come here and do for us what you did there. And, people have heard me say this before, and hopefully this isn't an explicit podcast, but I think I told Tony no. I said, not only no, but hell no, I don't want to do that. Because if I were to start a company, it would be more based in relationships. It would be a little more lenient on individuals who are just doing the right work. And you know what, we would be a little more diligent around the humanistic side of what this industry truly is. And Tony said, yeah, that sounds great. Come over here and build that for us. And so, certainly I contemplated, geez, could I do this? Should I just do this on my own? And the more I talked to Tony, the more I heard that support piece from him. So my second career key, he's like, if you can come over here, we'll mitigate all that risk for you, Chris. You can build it however you like. Just come over here. And so after, no kidding, after 7 meetings with Tony, he finally convinced me to do it. And I got a great piece of advice from my dad before I took the job, because, you know, I knew of Chris and Tony a little bit. And this advice still sticks with me, as I was asking my father, do you think I should make this move? He said, Chris, it's really kind of simple, actually. It's, do you know these guys? Do you like these guys? And do you trust these guys? And at that time, that really helped me kind of dig in a little bit more and helped me assess if this was something that I wanted to do. And so in 2013, I said, yep, let's do it. And I jumped over here, and 11 years into the role now, I can really confidently say what Tony was saying to me back in 2013, his vision of what he wanted to create. Certainly we've had bumps in the road and things like that, but I really feel like we've achieved that culture and then some. And we're in a growth mode right now that is really exciting to me, where it was, you know, we were a pretty small company when I hopped over here, and we've got some pretty aggressive growth goals here within the next 5 years. So it's almost like I'm working for a different company now. So that keeps me really engaged as well.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there's aspects of what you guys do that is, you know, if anybody they know you as being recruiters, right? But there's so many different aspects of what you're doing, and how you've grown the portfolio and the offerings, and have kind of flattened it out a little bit to where it's not just one thing. I'm going to pivot a little bit, because I think it'd be interesting just to hear this from your perspective. If someone is getting into recruiting and they are like, why did you decide to get into leadership versus, I think you can make a damn good living and make a lot of money as a recruiter, right? And I know that, and everyone knows that, but I think it takes a certain kind of person, because I'll be the person to say it. You don't have to say it. You're probably taking a pay cut going into leadership. And so if you're a really high performing recruiter, you do really well financially. What is it about the leadership side that just checked the box for you?
I think early in my career, there's a lot of naivete there. I think I just said, oh, I don't know, I want to be a leader and climb that corporate ladder, because that's what people do. And that means you're more successful if you do that. Right. So I raised my hand pretty early and enjoyed it. But there's a lot of bumps in the road as you're an early leader, and you're trying to gain credibility, and you're trying to gain political influence and all of that. So there's some hard lessons that really need to be learned. What I really appreciated about it, and you don't get it a lot in the moment, but if there's ever a moment where somebody is elevated from your team, or somebody decides to leave from your team, or somebody makes a strategic move for another reason and they continue to flourish, the comments that they'll make back to their leaders that they really appreciate, where they say, you know, but for you and your ability to believe in me and your trust in me, I wouldn't have an opportunity to grow. And I think that's it. I just read a thank you note from somebody here at Versique who's moving on to an opportunity. And yeah, it kind of made me well up a little bit, because I think leaders sometimes underestimate the influence they have on people's lives and their entire careers. I guarantee you, Aaron, you and the people listening back, if I say, who is the worst leader you ever had and who is the best leader you ever have, you immediately know that answer. Oh, yeah. And so what I would say is, to just quote Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Oh, yeah. Regardless if you think you have it or not, you have influence on the people's lives that you're overseeing. And so use that for good, man.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. Don't squander that away, right?
Yeah.
Okay, one more question, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the future of Versique and some cool stuff that you guys got coming out. So you talked about when you were in that dating phase with Tony and Chris, and 7 meetings and things like that. This just popped into my head so in combination with what your discipline is, around recruiting and talent. What is, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm sure you've been asked something related to this question. If someone is entertaining an opportunity as an employee or an equity partner or something, a high level executive, anything like that, what is one thing that someone should always be doing during the dating process? Like, how do they, you know what I'm talking about with the dating that seven meeting dating process. And I think the dating process is so important. What
Yeah.
is one thing that someone should be doing when they're in that position?
I think it's being very, very specific around what you're excited about in the role and what's causing you hesitancy.
Mhm.
And there's power around actually writing down the sentences.
Mhm.
And what I'm getting at is making sure that your vision is aligned with their vision, and making sure your greatest fears can be quelled, maybe is the
Mhm.
right word for it.
Mhm.
Because oftentimes I think throughout that dating process, there's a lot of assumptions that are being made and a lot of expectations that are set. And where things start to crumble is when expectations aren't met. So during the dating process, it would be to like write down the things that you're most excited to take on and achieve in the role, and make sure that whomever you're speaking to is aligned with that, saying, yes, that's a part of what we want you to do. And that's the vision of where we know it's going to be successful. And then ask yourself the question of, what's your greatest fear? What's your greatest fear if you make this move? What would happen? And I think saying that out loud and writing it down and talking to the potential leader about that drains it from its power and keeps you from making up stories in your own head. Because in the absence of communication, we all make up stories. And when we make up stories, they're typically negative. So over communicate.
Literally, I was just reading an article last week. It was a psychology newsletter that I get, and 91% of the thoughts in your head when you don't have the answer is negative. 91.
Come on.
That's an insane number, right?
That's insane.
So yeah. Yeah. So that's a good, like, that right there, the talk track and everything is the more you can get out of the communication is going to be able to inform that decision the best. Yeah. Yeah. All right, paint me a picture for what the future holds. All right, so I know one thing. You're relaunching the podcast, so I'm really excited to hear about that. Tell me a little bit about what you got going on with the new podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So our podcast, the podcast name is People Make It Possible. That's our mantra here at Versique. And there's going to be a surprise coming out for version 2.0. You know, we had to put it in a shoebox for a little bit. We lost our marketing person, and she was the brains behind the operation. She just sat me in front of a mic and brought a couple of my friends in for some fun conversations. So technically, we didn't necessarily know how to do it. So, yeah. Eggert, I'm very impressed that you know how to do this with all your technology and things like that. But today, our studio is getting set up. And we will be recording a podcast on September 17th. And like I said, there's going to be a fun little surprise once that podcast launches. So we're really excited for that. But People Make It Possible is just an ode to individuals' journeys throughout their careers, and recognizing that there are people who help us along the way, right? Mm-hmm. And there are people who shape us. And so it's just kind of an ode to that. And I'm really excited to get it going again. Versique, as a whole, you know, we just a little commercial here, but Versique has 3 different service offerings that we help clients and candidates with. Executive search for C-level positions. It's with professional search within quite a number of functional areas. And then my role within Versique right now is I'm the president of over all of our project-based contract type work. And so as we take a look at how we're going to grow from here, we know that what's going to fuel a lot of the growth is hiring talented individuals within our 4 walls. And so we're going to be a heavy push on that moving forward. There's going to be a heavy push on really internal infrastructure and making sure that all of our processes and how we want our people to show up is defined and recorded and taught. And so training is going to be a big part of how we continue to grow. But, you know, we're very excited. There's a competitor in town who, you know, grew their business to just a very large scale, and you know, we envy them for what they had become, because we have a lot of respect for a lot of our competitors here in town. And we, you know what, we want to grow, but we want to grow the right way, certainly.
Well, I know so many people on your team, and you know, my main guy over there is John Naughton, and he's on your team, and he raves about you. That's how we got connected and stuff. So I, you know, just seeing the people you've been adding to your team, and you know, I watch everything on LinkedIn and the announcements and stuff like that. Future's bright when you got a good team, right?
Yeah, I agree. We've added 2 leaders over here, one over our exec search, a guy by the name of Eric Lindquist, who's been at the highest heights. He's been CEO before, and he's really brought a lot to what we're trying to do, as we're trying to be maybe a more grown up organization. And then we hired Kathy Rabadou, and she is, one of the purest lights in the universe, man. She is so fun to work with and knows so many people. And she is truly a culture add, and she's going to do some big things here at Versique for us.
Sweet. So before we get into 9 questions here, we will take a break, but I also want to make sure that we touch base on some of the personal side of things. Tell me a little bit about your family and what you like to do for fun.
Family-wise, I've lived in Chaska for about 20 years, and we love that community out there. Chaska Town Course is one of the best courses in Minnesota. If you haven't played it, hit me up. We'll go play it.
I love it.
I have 3 children. I have a 22-year-old who just graduated from lacrosse, and he is about a month into his professional career. So that's fun to watch him flourish.
Sweet.
I have a daughter who's a 20-year-old junior at the University of Minnesota, and she's studying agricultural business. Cool. And then I have my baby is a senior at Chaska High. So Charlie, Lucy, and then my baby is Drew, and he's a baseball player down there, and we're doing the whole college search scene right now.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get him to St. John's. I'm 0 for 3 in all my kiddos, but it's been a wild ride. And then my rock is my wife, Kim. Kim, she manages her family farm down in Iowa, so she's busy with that. And then I got to mention our Bernese mountain dog, George. He's a Mr. Guy, and he's great. And so we have a lot of fun. We're having just a blast with our adult kids now, and we're doing as best we can.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. All right, let's take a quick break here. We're gonna 9 questions, I think, are the best way to really see what people are like. So we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna listen to a few more of our community supporters, and we're gonna come right back here with Chris. We're gonna dive into 9 questions.
Every year brings new challenges for Minnesota business leaders, and USI Insurance is here to take the pressure off of the employee benefits decision. Having a local presence with national resources, USI combines a client-centric culture with leading-edge technical resources so you can make an informed decision on your benefits investment. The USI team has been deeply committed to investing into our local communities and utilizes their expertise to provide solutions you can count on to protect your greatest asset, your employees. USI has been partnering with Twin Cities businesses for decades, and they would welcome the opportunity to do the same for you. Visit USI.com to learn how USI's approach to risk management and employee benefits delivers customized, actionable solutions with bottom-line impact. The topic of talent is hot in organizations of any size, and I would argue none more than small to mid-sized businesses. That's why it's crucial to have a partner to help you navigate all the HR idiosyncrasies so you can focus on working on your business and not in it. Insperity is a full-service HR partner with a high-touch, high-tech platform helping owners work through challenges like employee retention, company culture, and benefits, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and explore all they have to offer at Insperity.com. Insperity, HR that makes a difference.
Tell me if this sounds familiar. Your business is having challenges with adding revenue, or you're ready for quicker growth and scale. Your sales team lacks a coach or mentor to help guide and excel their production, and you're not quite sure who the best resource is for sourcing and replacing sales professionals on your team. When you're looking for a company that provides sales solutions that drive growth, look up Sales Homie. Sales Homie is the premier fractional CRO or VP sales agency, additionally offering sales recruiting and placement services, sales leadership coaching, and sales team training programs. Don't put your business at risk with low revenues and uninspired sales professionals. Learn more about Sales Homie by visiting their website at saleshomie.com. Sales Homie, sales solutions that drive growth.
Kaisa Wealth Management treats each client like a member of the family. Acting as your personal CFO, we are fiercely devoted to your financial prosperity. At Kaisa, our wealth strategies are aligned with your core values, creating a wealth plan centered around the legacies you wish to create. This is our Kaisa commitment. Our wealth strategies are dynamic and tailor-made for your long-term goals because as a family investment firm, excellence in service is not just a promise, it's our baseline. Whether it's selling a business, planning succession, creating a legacy, navigating life's changes like death and divorce, supporting executives on the move, planning for your retirement, or just preserving your family wealth, We are here for you. Find out how we can help to simplify your wealth at kaisawealth.com.
Are you a local business owner looking to take your enterprise to the next level? Look no further than Security Bank and Trust Company, your partner in growth. Our dedicated team of smart, experienced bankers understand the unique challenges and opportunities facing businesses like yours. With personalized financial solutions and expert advice, we're here to help you succeed every step of the way. From tailored business loans to cutting-edge digital banking services, Security Bank and Trust is committed to your success. Experience the difference a local bank can make. Visit us today at any of our convenient locations or online at security-banks.com. Security Bank and Trust, growing together.
When you think of a typical CPA firm, you probably think of tax planning. Well, that just scratches the surface of what Boulay offers their clients. By providing smart, in-depth thinking from experts in accounting, audit, tax, and business consulting, they know what it takes to achieve financial success. Whether it's protecting your business, building your wealth, or securing your future, you can count on Boulay to go beyond addressing just financial matters and providing you with tailor-made, workable solutions. Learn about all they have to offer at bouleygroup.com. Boulay, helping you get there. In addition to our amazing prospering and thriving level supporters, we want to shine a spotlight on our equally amazing evolving level supporters. Alliant Insurance Services, Bauer Design Build, Beyond Design Resource Group, Entrabank, Fluid Interiors, and Modern Foundation. All of the Coalition 9 community supporters can be found at coalition9.com/community-supporters. All right, we're back here with Chris. Chris, I am so pumped to do these 9 questions. I got a couple new ones that our listeners have not heard before. The internet works in amazing ways, and thank you to all the random people that have sent me different questions. So I'm adding a couple of new ones here. Before we get started, can you confirm to me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
I have no idea, and I am a little nervous.
A little nervous is good, like healthy butterflies, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Question 1. What are 3 words that describe you?
Selfless, empathetic, and driven.
You know, when you were talking about the nature versus nurture thing, and you were talking about your mom, and then you were talking about your dad, one thing I just want to give you a shout out is I would say another word that that I would use for you is super approachable. Like, you know, I didn't know you from Adam, right? Like, and I felt like I specifically remember we were at an event last year, and it was the November, like preparing for 2024 event. And I talked to you like I've known you for like 10 years. And it was just I don't even think I called you by your first name, and you didn't call me by my first name. Like, it was one of those things. I just got to give you a shout out on that. Like, I would throw as a 4th, and I'm going to throw in the 4th as approachable. I think that is something that is undervalued. And I think that you just got it. It's just natural.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
What is the first album you ever owned?
Huey Lewis and the News Sports.
That's a good album.
It's a great album,
right?
Yeah, it was my first. Yeah, it was my first CD. If I'm going back to cassette tape, man, cassette tape. I don't know, CNC Music Factory back in the day.
Yeah. Mine was Tone Loc.
Oh, was it really? Oh man, I haven't heard. Tone Loc. I'm listening to that on the way home now.
Yeah,
Tone
you should
Loc.
play that. Yeah, play some funky Cole Medina. What is the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Yeah, I would probably say it's got to be crickets at Awamni.
Oof, yeah, hard no.
Yeah, how about you?
Eel, unagi sushi is disgusting. It tastes like dirt. It was either bad or just as bad. I mean,
why did we do it?
I don't know. It's terrible.
What's the attitude going into that? Were you like, I'm going to do it to prove to myself I can? Or I'm really curious to see how this tastes?
Yeah, the latter. I was just like, oh, I'll give it a shot. And then I tasted it. I'm like, spit it out. No, hard no. Done. Like crickets. No, like I'd probably react the same with crickets. Yeah. Good for you. That's a good one, actually. Some people have some pretty boring things. That's a pretty spicy one. What is one thing that immediately brightens your day?
It's easy to say kids, wife, dog, and stuff like that. But there's something about, like, if I'm not having a good day, there's something about being outside, nature, sun in your face. So just overall answer, I'm going to say nature with asterisk of course, my family.
Yeah, right. I mean, there is something like that is a little bit of a no-brainer, the family thing. I probably would have pushed you to answer a little bit of a different way, but there is something about, especially when it's nice outside. I mean, the sun's shining and going for a 15-minute walk when you've maybe just come off of a rough meeting or something like that to just completely flip it on its end.
Yeah. And breaking 90 in golf, that also puts a smile on my face.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. I'd like to do that with you one day. What is one quality in a person that impresses you?
I think the ability to be competitive and selfless at the same time. I think if you can balance, ambition with understanding that, hey, it's not all about me, it's about a team and I'm going to bring people with me. I think that's a really, really unique skill set.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, are you highly competitive?
You know what? I've gotten more competitive as I've gotten older, but like growing up, I just wanted to be part of the team, man. I just wanted to be the glue guy, and I wanted to have success. But at the end of the day, I was like, as long as everybody's having fun. And
Yeah, right.
I think I've become more competitive as I've gotten older.
Yeah, yeah. If you could compete in one Olympic sport, what would it be?
Oh, of course. We all ask ourselves these questions, right? During the Olympics. I'll tell you what I wouldn't want to do first, water polo. How terrifying is that? People can climb on top of your head and dunk you. Forget it.
Forget it. No,
Forget
I don't
it.
even like watching it. It makes me uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I'm in a cardboard box. Like I feel like the walls are closing in on me. Nope.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'm just going to go throwback to college athletics. I ran the 400 hurdles in college, and I just think that is such a fun race. And fun is a weird word for it, but I really enjoyed it. So 400 hurdles.
Great. That's a good answer. What I love about that question, you could go anyway, and I didn't specify summer or winter. I love the fact that you went with summer because of the season that we're in. But yeah, that's a good one. That's hard too. If you could give a TED talk on anything except something related to your career, what would it be?
So, okay, yeah, no leadership stuff or anything like that. It's part of the career. Man, I would probably say TED talk on how to trim a brisket and get it just perfect on that Traeger.
That's so good.
Yeah,
that's a great
on
one.
the Traeger. Thank you. Yeah.
See what I mean about like this? Like if that is something I would have never known about you. I love that. So you love smoking meats?
I love smoking meats. It's a hobby that I picked up during COVID, of course, like a bunch of other individuals. But man, yeah, I think what I like most about it is you get to tinker. Like you get to try it, and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to do different next time. I'm going to use different pellets or a different temp, and I'm going to trim the meat in a different manner. So I really like tinkering. That's something that shows up in work sometimes. That's something that certainly shows up in the garage, but it also shows up on the smoker too.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great one, Chris. Love that. What do you enjoy spending money on?
I really enjoy spending money on gadgets. I am such a sucker for things in the Instagram shop that come across and I say like, oh, look at that gadget. I need that, whether it be for the kitchen or for the garage or anything like that. I can be talked into spending a little bit of money on sports cards as well, specifically NBA cards. But yeah, I'd say gadgets.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. Instagram gadgets. Let's even just put a little bit of a caveat on that.
Love it.
All right, last one. And I this one is specifically tailored for you. So Mount Rushmore, right? There's 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Oh, God, that's such a great question. I love it.
Yeah, dude.
Well, I mean, KG for sure, right? KG is the one who came into this organization and really put it on the map. Number 2, our guy Ant. Come on, Anthony Edwards has got to be up there. He is so fun to watch, and he's even better to listen in post-game interviews. And I cannot get enough Anthony Edwards. Neither can my entire extended family. Shout out Ryan Dressen and Paul Dressen. I would say number 3, 2 words, Naz Reid. I mean, I think he's really improved, and I think he's just going to get better and better and better. And then last one, I'm going to kind of go curveball here. And I'm going to say it's Tim Conley. It's our new GM, man. He's the architect.
Good. Nice.
Yeah, he's the guy that is architecting all of this. And for the record, I like the Rudy trade day one. Good job
Yeah.
to him. And so, yeah, I can't get enough of it. It's a passion that I share with my wife. We're so lucky. Like every time I get home and my wife will say, "Are the Wolves on tonight?" I know a lot of people don't have that, but we'll watch 82 games this year and love every minute of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you're a huge Wolves fan, but that Tim Conley pull is really good. I mean, what he's built in Denver they're still feeling the positive effects of that. And now what he's doing with the Wolves, like you're right, 100%. He should be on that Mount Rushmore. I was just thinking players. I wasn't even thinking coaches even.
Yeah, man.
That's good. That's good. You survived 9 questions, man.
Thank you very much. Those were harder than I thought. Love it.
That's the idea, to keep you on your toes a little bit and have to think a little bit. Well, let me just say, like, Versique, the partnership we got with Coalition9 and the relationships that we've developed and the future beers that we're going to have together and stuff like that. Like, I'm just so proud of the relationship that our organizations have built and that you and I are building our blossoming friendship. And I can't thank you enough for supporting us and having our backs and going to events and supporting our members. In addition to that, I also want to just say how great it was just to have a podcast host on the show. Like, you're a pro and it shines through, and you're very thoughtful with your questions. So I want more people to know who you are. I want more people to learn about Versique. So we're going to flood our show notes with your links and stuff like that. But how can people reach out to you and get to know you if they so choose so?
I think the easiest way is just on LinkedIn, looking up Chris Dardis on LinkedIn, and please, reach out. Other than that, checking out the Versique website, I think is another way that has some of my contact information. But look me up on LinkedIn, reach out, and I'd love to have a cup of coffee with anybody who's interested.
Yeah, or go troll the Chaska Town course.
Yes. Amen. Amen. Yeah. And Aaron, I'll say, you know what, you are an easy person, and Coalition9 is an easy organization to support. So thanks for all that you do for us, and your events are elite. I went to a panel that you guys had at Forgotten Star Brewing, and I thought that was one of the coolest events that I've been doing in a really long time.
Thanks, brother. It's all my team. I come up with some crazy ideas and they execute. So you know the deal. That's part of leadership, man. Like, I just empower my team to do great things, and they continue to crush. Well, Chris, on behalf of you, I want to say thank you for being on the show. This has been the Power of Non podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.